It was the summer after I turned 20, and everything in my life was supposed to feel fresh, new, even exciting. Instead, I found myself in a house that didn't feel like home anymore, sharing space with someone I barely knew but was expected to treat like family. His name was Jack. My mother had met him less than a year earlier at the car dealership where she worked the front desk. He was older, calm, and charming in a way that made people lean in when he talked. I didn't know whether to trust him or run the other way. When I came back from college for break, the first thing I noticed was how much had changed. The framed photos in the hallway were different. Our living room, once full of mismatched couches and warm clutter, now had sleek gray leather and a mounted television I'd never seen before. My room, thankfully, was untouched. But the energy in the house was different, colder. Jack wasn't cruel, not overtly. He smiled when he saw me, asked questions about school, about my major, about whether I had a boyfriend. The first time he asked that, I laughed it off. The second time, I hesitated. It didn't feel like small talk anymore. One night, about a week after I'd come home, my mom got called in for an overnight shift. She worked part-time as a private caregiver and her client had taken a bad turn. I was already in my pajamas, curled up on the couch when she rushed out the door with a tired, "Be good, baby," and her purse slung over her shoulder. Jack was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with a glass of something dark in his hand. Bourbon, maybe. He watched her leave, then looked at me and smiled. "You staying up late?" he asked. I shrugged. "Maybe. I was just watching something." "Mind if I join you?" he asked, already walking toward the couch. I didn't know what to say, so I nodded. The couch was big, but it felt smaller with him on it. He didn't sit close, not yet, but he was close enough that I could smell the cologne he always wore, something smoky and expensive. I tried to focus on the movie, but I wasn't even sure what it was about anymore. "I always wanted a daughter," Jack said suddenly, not looking at me. "Didn't have any kids of my own. Guess life just passed me by." I gave a soft, polite smile. My dad's not really in the picture, so it's been just me and my mom for a while. He nodded slowly. "She did a good job. You turned out impressive." That word hung in the air a little too long. I shifted my legs and pulled the blanket up to my chest. Maybe it was just me being sensitive. Maybe I was imagining something that wasn't there. "I think I'm gonna head to bed," I said, trying to sound casual. Jack turned to look at me. His eyes were steady, unreadable. "Of course. Long day. Sweet dreams." I stood up, careful not to let the blanket fall. As I passed by him, he placed his hand briefly on my arm, not forcefully, just lightly enough that I could have ignored it. But I felt it. The warmth of his palm. The pause in the air. In my room, I closed the door and locked it. My heart was racing for no reason I could explain. I didn't sleep well that night. Over the next few days, Jack became more present. He'd comment on how I looked, "That color suits you," or "You've got your mom's figure but your own spark," harmless things on the surface. But there was always something underneath. A pause. A glance that lasted a little too long. I tried to avoid being alone with him, but it was hard. My mom worked long shifts and Jack was always around, doing handyman things, fixing cabinets that weren't broken, finding excuses to linger. One afternoon, the air conditioner broke. It was one of those July days that felt heavy and sticky with heat. My mom was working again, and Jack knocked on my bedroom door, holding a toolbox. "Just need to check the vent," he said, pointing above my dresser. I hesitated, but opened the door. I was wearing shorts and a tank top, nothing provocative, just what made sense for the heat. I sat on the edge of my bed while he moved the dresser, and climbed on a small stool to reach the vent. "You don't have to stay," I said. "I'll be fine if you need help downstairs." He glanced over his shoulder. "Just making sure it's clear up here. Won't take long." I tried to busy myself with my phone, pretending not to notice how he was angling himself. Then the stool wobbled. He cursed under his breath and jumped down. "Mind holding this for me?" he asked, holding out a small flashlight. I took it without thinking. As he guided me to stand near the wall, he positioned himself close, too close. And when he stepped behind me to reach for something in the vent, his hand brushed the back of my thigh. Just a graze. Just a moment. But I felt it. Firm. Deliberate. I froze. My fingers tightened around the flashlight. I didn't say anything. I didn't move. I closed my eyes, trying to pretend I was somewhere else, someone else. The seconds dragged on. Then it was over. He stepped away as if nothing had happened. "Thanks, sweetheart," he said, taking the flashlight back. "You're a good helper." I nodded numbly and left the room. My hands were shaking. That night, I couldn't eat. I barely spoke to my mom. She didn't notice. She was tired, overwhelmed, grateful to have Jack around, someone who helped out so much. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to scream. But what would I say? That her boyfriend touched my leg while pretending to fix an air vent? That he looked at me in ways that made my stomach twist? It sounded so small, so subtle. Would she believe me? Would she stay? I decided to stay at my friend Maya's house that weekend. I told my mom I needed a break, that I wanted to get out of the house. She didn't ask too many questions. Maya didn't either, but she noticed something was off. We sat on her porch that night, and I finally told her everything. Her eyes widened. "You need to tell your mom," she said. "She has a right to know." "I don't want to blow up her life," I whispered. "What if she thinks I'm just being dramatic?" "You're not. That's serious. It's not your job to protect her from the truth." It took me 3 more days. 3 more long, aching days before I found the courage. When I finally did, I waited until Jack left the house for a meeting. My mom was folding laundry in her room, humming along to a song on the radio. "I need to talk to you," I said. She looked up. "Everything okay?" I sat on the bed and started shaking. "It's about Jack." The words came out slowly, choked, like I was confessing something shameful. I told her everything. Her face went from confused to pale to furious in a matter of minutes. But not at me, at him. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered. "Because I didn't know if you'd believe me." She dropped the shirt she was holding. "Of course I believe you. You're my daughter." I cried then. Really cried. She held me tight and promised me everything would be okay. And she kept that promise. That night, when Jack came home, she was waiting for him. She told him to get out. She didn't ask questions, didn't let him speak. Just packed his things and threw them outside. He tried to talk his way out of it, of course. Claimed it was a misunderstanding. That he was just being friendly. But my mom wasn't having it. "You don't touch my daughter," she said coldly. "Ever." He left. And we never saw him again. The months that followed were strange. I felt guilty sometimes, even though I knew I shouldn't. I kept replaying that moment in my room, the feeling of his hand on my thigh, the fear that had gripped me.